Hey there, this video is going to answer the question, should I use the first person or the third person in my grant writing? Spoiler alert, you should use both, but let's get into it a little bit more here. First, what is the difference between first person and third person? Well, first person refers to first person pronoun use, like I, we, our. It tends to be pretty informal. On the other hand, third person refers to third person pronouns, third person point of view, like they, he, she, it, them. It tends to be much more formal than the first person. And so generally speaking, first person is typically avoided in academic contexts and is much more acceptable in creative writing. On the other hand, third person is a bit more flexible and it can be appropriately used in either creative context or academic context. Because of this, it can be a little bit more challenging to figure out when and where to use the third person. And even more challenging is trying to figure out what should we use in grant writing, because where does grant writing fall? It's not exactly creative writing, it's not exactly 100% technical or academic style writing. So what is it then? Well, it's a combination of both creative storytelling and persuasive academic technical style writing. So in that regard, grant writing does require a certain amount of stylistic finesse. So that question, should I use the first person or the third person grant writing, is a really good question to ask. And we recommend using a blend of both third and first person, because really we're no different than you. We want the best of both worlds and we want to reap the benefits of both the third person and the first person. So why use a blend? Why use both? Well, when we use a blend of first and third person, we create improved readability for our grant reviewer, and it also creates a natural sentence structure variety. Both of those things are key to creating high quality writing. Now, I certainly could use the third person throughout the entire narrative. If my organization was named Churches United for the Homeless, I could say Churches United for the Homeless for the entire proposal. But let's be real, that's 5 words long and I'm already working with a tight word count limit or character count limit. So if I keep using that Churches United for the Homeless, I'm only running out of space quicker. Also, when I only use that organization name, it might come across as pretty impersonal and a little too formal for our grant reviewers. On the other hand, using the first person has the benefits of being more personal, relatable, and collaborative. If I only use the first person, some funders might say, this seems a little bit vague. And if you consider, I've got a 30-page narrative, you better believe that by page 29, if you've only been using we in our organization, that grant reviewer is not going to remember who you are or what the name of your organization is. Other people will also be using we in our organization, so if you only use that, you fall into that space with a whole bunch of other we's in our organizations trying to do good in the world, and so they can't differentiate you from other applicants. Our biggest hard and fast rule is to never say I, but to use we in our organization when you refer to your organization. So let's look at a real world example. This is from a grant application that we just recently submitted, so I'll just read off the little excerpt for you. Much of our focus has been devoted to tackling recidivism. We now need support to kickstart the department's objectives regarding recovery services. So in that example, we use a blend of first and third person, and there was no issues. It read pretty smoothly and no questions, or I didn't get caught up on anything. So what if we change that to only using the third person? Then it would read a little bit more like this. The department's resources have been focused on tackling recidivism. The department now needs support to kickstart the department's objectives regarding recovery support. That was a little bit more clunky, not as smooth, and let's be honest, there's only so many different ways to rephrase the department. I could say our organization, but again, it's a little bit more simple to just say we or our organization. At only 2 words, the department is a relatively short name for an organization. But going back to our previous example of Churches United for the Homeless, that's 5 words. We're already running out of space, and it's just so clunky in a sentence or a paragraph. There's no need to repeat the name of our organization multiple times in one sentence or even in a paragraph. And yeah, you could abbreviate or include an acronym, but we really encourage you to not do that. Because while you might be deeply ingrained into the organization and the mission, the grant reviewer is not. They're not attending those internal staff meetings or coming to board meetings, and so they just don't understand the vernacular. You want to make it as clear and easy to read as possible for them. So we recommend that you limit your abbreviations and acronyms in grant proposals. Our goal is to create a very positive experience for grant reviewers. We want to combine our story with persuasive statistics that will compel them to fund our proposal. Basically, we want our narrative to read like a well-written, informative, and compelling book. And another thing to consider is that at the end of the day, writing is a little bit about intuition. It's about flow and figuring out what works best in the sentence or the paragraph or in this particular proposal. It's okay to pause and ask yourself, does the first person sound better in this sentence, or should I use the third person? And if your punctuation, grammar, and spelling are all on point and correct, you needn't worry too much about messing this part up. Chances are you're golden. So if you still need help trying to figure out whether you should use the first or the third person, try reading the sentence or the paragraph out loud. When we hear something, it's a completely different experience than reading the paragraph and reading that sentence for the millionth time. Trust yourself, have a little faith in your understanding of flow and of writing, and if you're still struggling, in your independent review, when you have someone review your work right before you submit it, ask that person and that editor to specifically look at your usage of first and third person. This is something we always recommend, and that's because this outside individual can catch things that you may have missed. In summary, as grant writers, we need to be using the first and third person in our narratives. Use a blend of both for improved readability and more sentence structure variety. The ultimate goal is preparing a clear, easy-to-read narrative that will compel funders to fund your request. To make that a reality, we need to use both first and third person. So comment below how you're using the first and third person in your grant writing proposals. And if you're interested in more grant writing tips and education and training, sign up for our course, Grant Writing from Start to Funded. It's linked below in the description, or it's available on our website at learngrantwriting.org.